Political party of El Salvador denounced irregularities and the lack of more than half of the tally sheets in some departments prior to the counting of votes. Nicaragua's government supports South Africa's claim before the International Court of Justice against Israel for committing genocide against the Palestinian people. And in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Doctors Without Borders and other humanitarian organizations denounce attacks on hospitals as escalating violence is keeping thousands of people trapped in crossfire. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Political parties of El Salvador denounce irregularities and the lack of more than half of the tally sheets in some departments prior to the counting of votes endorsed by the Supreme Electoral Tribunal. Many of the minutes were not found in the electoral boxes, but the Public Prosecutor's Office and the official party Nuevas Ideas had copies, which the Supreme Electoral Tribunal endorsed their use. Meanwhile, Article 211 of the Electoral Code is clear in stating that the only valid minutes are those of the voting boards, sealed and signed by its members. In Venezuela, the National Assembly had a day of national dialogue with the religious sector at the Legislative Palace. Under the auspices of the National Assembly, the third day of national dialogue took place in Venezuela with a meeting between representatives of the legislative and the religious sector. During the meetings, the deputies, together with representatives of various religious sectors of the country, discussed the upcoming elections in search of mechanisms to guarantee the preservation of peace and the unity of the country for free elections for all, without sanctions and development without foreign interference. In such sense, the deputy Nicolás Maduro Guerra proposed the summoning of international observers with the support of the National Electoral Council. The government of Bolivia affirmed that its gold reserves exceeded 23,000 tons in response to the negative rating of a U.S. risk agency. In this regard, the Central Bank of Bolivia assured that the American risk rating agency Fitch Ratings did not know the reality in the vaults of the National Treasury by giving the country the CCC classification and speculating on its international reserves. The institution denied the use of part of the gold in the international reserves as warranty, as the American agency claims. The financial entity detailed that as of December 31st, 2023, the reserves were at 23.51 tons, above the limit established in the norms. On Thursday, the former head of security of the state-owned company Ecopetrol, Jose González, confessed in the Special Jurisdiction for Peace about an infiltration of the workers' union in Colombia between 1982 and 1995. In the framework of the case that investigates the relations between the security forces, paramilitaries and third parties, the former head of security of Ecopetrol in Barrancabermeja exposed the role of infiltration against the workers' union of the state-owned company, a union that was devastated by the homicides and the siege. In this sense, González declared about his time in the army and the knowledge he had of less with information of civilians who were delivered to them and then assassinated under the labor union's label of enemies of the homeland. Ecopetrol is the largest and primary petroleum company in Colombia. On Thursday, the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, ordered the reduction of funds and subsidies to the provinces. In this sense, local media exposed that the order was carried out by his Minister of Economy, Luis Caputo. In the meantime, the presidential spokesman, Manuel Adorni, assured that the executive decision was intended to bring transparency to a system that he stated it works in favor of politics itself. In this sense, social movement indicated that beyond the sociological and political rhetoric, this decision has an enormous impact on the life of the average Argentine. In places like Córdoba, where the libertarian movement was very well received, the cost of a bus ticket could reach $1.20 US. It is worth noting that the Transportation Subsidy Compensation Fund was born as a way to compensate for the cost of tickets paid in the metropolitan area. And with teleSUR, you can now celebrate one of the largest festivals in South American continent. Gladys Quesada brings you all the details in this Carnival Time 2024. Tune in every day this week at 7 p.m. Caracas time through our Facebook Live at teleSUR English official and X account at teleSUR English and discover our most colorful celebration. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. The government of Nicaragua joined the lawsuit filed by South Africa against Israel for genocide against the Palestinian people before the International Court of Justice. Nicaragua urged the judges to recognize that Tel Aviv is in breach of all its obligations under the Genocide Convention. In this regard, Managua requested authorization to intervene in the case under Article 62, which allows state participation in such a case as long as its interests are legal. In this regard, the court requested South Africa and Israel to submit written observations on Nicaragua's request for intervention. The Palestinian hospital of Al-Amal, South Gaza in Khan Yunis was raided by the Israeli occupation forces as part of their military operation against that territory. Through a statement, the Palestinian Red Crescent denounced the incursion of the Israeli occupation forces into the health facility and said that they have no more details of what happened due to the interruption of telecommunications. The Red Crescent further stated that the patients and people being housed in that hospital are at risk due to the lack of oxygen, fuel and supplies. In recent weeks, the Palestinian territory has been the victim of numerous attacks, bombings and incursions by the occupation forces, causing thousands of murders. In Saudi Arabia, the head of diplomacy and several Arab countries held a meeting with the Secretary of the Executive Committee of the Organization for the Liberation of Palestine, in which they demanded a ceasefire in Gaza. The meeting with the Secretary of the Executive Committee, Hussein al-Sheikh, was attended by Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan and Qatar to call for an immediate ceasefire in view of the intention of the Israeli army to extend its fighting to the Rafah area, where half of the enclave's Palestinian residents are displaced from areas that have been constantly bombed. In this context, the countries stressed the need to end the war in Gaza and ensure the protection of civilians. They have also expressed support for the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, which has seen a spate of funding suspensions in recent days following Israel accusations that some staff were allegedly linked to the October 7th attack. In South Africa, Minister of Internal Relations and Cooperation Naledi Pandor accused Israel intelligence of trying to intimidate her through threats against her and her family on social networks. In a speech on Thursday night, Pandor explained that the intimidations received were due to the lawsuit that the African country had filed before the International Court of Justice in The Hague with accusations of genocide against the Palestinian population of the Gaza Strip. The minister indicated that she was concerned about the safety of her family and asked the Minister of Police, Becky Selle, to reinforce her security after having received threatening messages on social networks. According to the Mail and Guardian newspaper, despite the threats against Pandor, the foreign minister assured that the South African government is determined to pursue the case at the ICJ, International Court of Justice, and South African lawyers will work in the coming months to prepare the next round of arguments before the court. On December 29th, South Africa filed an application to initiate proceedings against Israel at the International Court of Justice in The Hague in relation to its acts of a genocidal nature. The international body of justice ruled in late January on the application filed by South Africa and ordered Israel to take all possible measures to prevent genocide in Gaza. Numerous film and television personalities spoke out in support of the genocide accusation filed by South Africa against Israel at The Hague court. On Thursday, authorities in Ecuador highlighted that at least 11,000 people have been affected in the canton of Salitre in Guayas as a consequence of the heavy rains associated with the climatic phenomenon of El Niño. In this sense, the National Committee for the Regional Study of this phenomenon presented a first balance of the effects. In this way, the report registered 390 dangerous events in 19 Ecuadorian provinces, in which more than 10,000 people have been affected in 100 cantons so far in 2024. It is worth mentioning that the balance included floods, structural collapses, and landslides. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news, coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin said that the agreements reached between his country and Ukraine in Istanbul were betrayed by Kyiv under pressure from its Western patrons. This was stated by the head of the state during an interview with U.S. journalist Tucker Carlson, recorded on Tuesday and broadcast on Thursday in the midst of strong controversy against the former television presenter. For more than 2 hours, the president spoke about issues that have not been frequently addressed by the mainstream media. Referring to the blowing up of the gas pipelines, he assured that the United States is responsible. Putin was emphatic in assuring that there is interest on the part of the Russian government to end the conflict. However, as long as the United States continue to send weapons to Ukraine, there will be nothing to talk about. A policy he also described as a strategic mistake.
They reached a very advanced stage of a complex process to agree on the positions, but still they were almost finalized. However, after we withdrew our troops from Kyiv, as I have already said, the other party, Ukraine, dispatched all these agreements and fulfilled the order of Western European countries and the United States to fight against Russia to the end. Moreover, the Ukrainian president prohibited at the legislative level to negotiate with Russia. He signed a decree forbidding everyone to negotiate with Russia. How can we negotiate if they have prohibited it to themselves and to the whole world?
Doctors Without Borders and other humanitarian organizations are denouncing attacks on hospitals in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where escalating violence is keeping thousands of people trapped in crossfire. Hospitals in the North Kivu region in the east of the country have come under attack, and the safety of their patients and medical staff is at risk. Fighting attributed to the resurgence of the M23 movement has intensified in the town of Weso, where several civilians have died inside their homes, hit by bullets. In view of the serious situation, the organizations are temporarily relocating their teams. The coordinator of Doctors Without Borders stated that the situation is highly worrying. And in several Brazilian cities, the various activities for the celebration of one of the most important carnivals in the world have already begun. From the city of Rio de Janeiro, the carnivals of Brazil are positioned as the most popular festival in the region, with dances, parades, and samba, to the point of being declared by UNESCO as intangible heritage of humanity. Rio de Janeiro offers one of the biggest and most awaited events by the population that will take place from February 9th to 13th. It is estimated that 1 million people from different parts of the world will arrive to the place to witness the display of the comparsas in the Sambodrome. In Bolivia, in the city of Oruro, the carnival began this Thursday with the realization of the Andean Anata, while the details for the official entrance of the festivity are being finalized. More than 50,000 people are expected to witness the traditional dance of the tobas that will go through the main streets of the folkloric city until arriving at the sanctuary of the Socavón. The celebration is scheduled to begin this Saturday at 7 a.m. local time. And in Venezuela, in the capital Caracas, cultural activities began for the carnival. In the popular parish of El Valle, hundreds of children and young people took part in the carnival shout with a caravan that traveled along the Intercommunal Avenue. The event was attended by the Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and authorities of the governmental entity, among other members of the cultural movement of the area. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media as well, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you.